Hi, hello. Welcome to this week's live stream. I set up a little countdown timer here because I'm not going to, oh, I still need to turn on my lights. Let there be light. Jump into things, but I wanted to give our friends just a couple of minutes to join us. Because today's topic is a really important one. And certainly, if you are going through the situation right now and are in a toxic relationship or recently out of a toxic relationship and putting yourself back together again, I think that today's live stream is going to be really, really helpful for you. But also, if you know somebody, if you have a good friend or maybe your sister or family member is going through this experience, I'm also glad you're here because I think today's conversation will give you insight into like what's going on with the situation that will help you have more empathy for their experience, but also give you more direction around how to help them as a friend because this is a very difficult life space to be in. And so we have a couple of minutes left. And again, we're just hanging out for a minute for people to drop in. But how is everybody today? I'm marginal. I was at an event the last couple of days in Tennessee, and I just flew back into Denver this morning. And so it's been quite a day. But hopefully it will be a positive live stream nonetheless. What about you guys? How is everybody? Let me pull up comments. I always love seeing your comments. Oh, hello and hello. Wonderful. This is so good. Yay. Oh, and I should take the opportunity to let you know that if you have questions for me, you can either obviously just put your questions, right in the comments here on whatever social platform you happen to be watching this on. But also, if you would like to comment more anonymously, which I completely respect and understand, you can do so on a form actually that I put together for you that is anonymous. I'll get the question in real time, just like a comment, but your identity will be protected. So you can come to my website, which is growingself.com/dear-Lisa. And then I will get your question and I can answer it during our time together today. And we've had actually quite a few questions that people have asked prior to this event, so I will be sure to answer all of those, and I really want to save as much time as possible for questions. So ask me yours, and sorry, you guys, I have like way too many windows open. Let me shut some of this stuff and pull up these. Okay, super. Nope. All right. Well, okay, great. Thank you again for being here with me. I'm going to turn off our little timer here and let's just jump into this here pool. So, breaking free from toxic relationships. This is a subject that, I mean, it's tough stuff, honestly, but it's actually one of my favorites to help people around because I think when you're going through this experience, it is so crazy making feeling and you don't know if you're coming or going. You can feel really stuck, but also like this relationship that rationally is not good for you keeps sucking you back in a way that it can make you, some people, I mean, feel kind of powerless over these feelings and they like re-engage with these people that are not good for them, and it's just around the cycle over and over again. Or on the other side of it too, even if you have managed to break free and extract yourself from a toxic relationship, there is healing work to do on the other side of this because of how mentally and emotionally and psychologically damaging it can be to be in this kind of situation. So I have so much to share and so many questions to answer for sure. But let me just dive in for a second to some stuff that I put together for you. before we jump into your questions, because I want to make sure that you, as always with these live streams, have like a cognitive framework, like to understand where some of my answers are going to be coming from. And so when we're talking about breaking free from toxic relationships, the most important thing to understand first and foremost is why these kinds of relationships are so addictive. And I am using that word addictive very intentionally because many people don't realize something about the nature of love, which is that we humans are designed biologically to bond to other people emotionally. And the systems in our brains and our bodies that nature built for this purpose are extremely powerful. So, like, heaven forbid, so if you were to use a substance of abuse like cocaine or opiates, those actually stimulate the same biological systems in your brain and in your body that nature actually designed for the purpose of bonding to other humans. So, like, that's what makes addictive substances addictive. And relationships are quote addictive in the same way because we have these very powerful attachments to other people. And the problem with toxic relationships is that they actually tend to have a more heightened, more emotionally charged, and honestly more addictive quality than healthier relationships do. Healthy relationships do not send you off on this big emotional roller coaster. Also, this may surprise you to know, but healthy, enduring, loving relationships can often have less of that like super intense chemistry feeling that will frequently characterize a legitimately toxic relationship. Like heightened sexuality is often part of the toxic relationships. But also, toxic relationships can be a lot of fun. I mean, they can be very powerful experiences that are congruent with this early stage romantic love. And it sends off a lot of these reward signals. So like dopamine, neurotransmitters, hormones that flood you and make you bond to this other person before your thinking brain has had a chance to find out yet if this person is actually really objectively bad for you. And so that is what often happens. You have this very intense, biologically based experience in these toxic relationships, and then other parts of you only catch up later because you're very, much in the pool with wanting to be very close to people who make us feel all of those feelings. And again, in a normal and healthy bonding process, these things also happen. They tend to feel a little bit less intense, but in a toxic relationship, this experience is kind of welding you to something that winds up being bad for you. Again, like going back to our illegal drug use analogy, right? I mean, when people use drugs, particularly in the beginning, it is a positive and pleasurable experience for them typically, which is why they keep doing it. It's only after the fact when they begin to experience consequences to their lives, their families, their health, and they're like, no, this isn't a good idea. But then it's like too late. They're trapped in some ways. And so toxic relationships are very much like that. And so there are a number of characteristics of a real deal toxic relationship, but I'll just name a few. I mean, they tend to be very unstable, unpredictable, lots of big highs and lows, which also kind of sinks the hook in further biologically. You feel like you're hanging on by an emotional thread, and oftentimes there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety. You don't really know what's happening in these relationships or what's going to happen next. It could be very rewarding, or it could also be very damaging. But this in itself can be a very intense emotional experience that leads you to actually seek reconnection from the person that hurt you. Like, I will win their love, and you start twisting yourself into pretzels to make this work in ways that are not good for you. But you really have to understand that there's like a totally different part of machinery that is operating at this point that is very different from our logical minds. So like, and I think we've all had this experience. Like if you were to look at a friend or family member objectively who is having this experience and going through these things, you'd be like, what are you thinking? Break up with them, right? But even if there's a part of you that knows that same thing, it does not feel true. You are welded to this person who is not good for you on a totally different level. And so understanding that that happens is a really important first part of being able to understand what's going on and then ultimately be able to change that. So the other thing that I think is very important to know about and be considering when it comes to toxic relationships is to have a conceptual understanding about the difference between toxic love, which is a total oxymoron, versus true love. And this is worth talking about because we are socialized to believe that love is a feeling. And that the feelings that we feel, particularly that early stage romantic love, the chemistry, the lust, the excitement, the butterflies, all the things, the euphoria, right? The caring very much what another person thinks about us. I think that as a society and what's modeled for us by other people is that love is supposed to feel that way. We're supposed to feel something. And while you can certainly have feelings of healthy, warm, good, light love that is very positive, it is a mistake to believe that love is a feeling, because as soon as you buy into that, you start wanting to have that feeling and expecting that love should feel like something. And as a marriage counselor, I just launched in, didn't I? If you're new here, I'm Dr. Lisa Marie Abhabi, a licensed psychologist, a licensed marriage counselor, a board-certified coach. I founded Growing Self Counseling and Coaching. I'm the host of the Love, Happiness, and Success podcast. So if you were wondering, like, who is the chick and what is her basis to be talking to me about toxic relationships or anything else, there you go. But what I was about to say is that in my experience as a marriage counselor, I have worked so many times with individuals or even couples where sometimes both people are in a high quality, fundamentally healthy relationship, but because they believe that love is supposed to feel like something that they are not feeling in their maturing relationship, they've convinced themselves that something is very wrong. This is the wrong relationship for me. We are not compatible. I should be having this emotional experience that I'm not having, and therefore I should leave this perfectly nice marriage to go find that with somebody else. And so again, this belief can do a number on us in a variety of different ways, but it's really true when it comes to toxic relationships. And so as we talk more about toxic relationships, how to identify them, how to break free from them, and also how to heal from them, one thing I would just like for you to be remembering is that true love is not a feeling at all. It is a choice. And it is a commitment, a values-based commitment to prioritize the genuine health and well-being of another person that you love, regardless of how you happen to feel at any given moment. It is doing the right thing for the benefit of others, acting with kindness and generosity and grace, and helping other people grow and develop and get what they need in a very selfless way. And so if you're a parent, obviously you will understand that. Sometimes, I'm a mom too. Like I am overcome with feelings of warmth and affection for my extremely cute children. Great. Most of the time, I'm not like awash in all of these like love bomb feelings. I am, however, being very intentional about everything that I do for these kids, even when it is painful and uncomfortable and I'm having to set limits and say, actually, no, you have to do your homework or whatever it is. Making healthy dinners when I would rather be doing something else and I do not feel like it because it's in their best interests. It is what I need to do in order to take care of them. And that is the definition of love. I wonder if we could all gather around, like, for truly the best interest of other people, because that's the kind of love that you deserve. And as soon as you start thinking about love through that lens, rather than the emotional lens, and you begin to see what has been happening in a relationship, the behaviors that other people have engaged in, or the things that have been done to you, maybe the things that you have done to them. I don't know, no judgment, but like you can begin to see, oh, that's not anything close to true love. And again, there's part of this that is always going to be an intellectual exercise, that your rational mind can understand something and you can still have this very, very powerful bond to an unhealthy person. So it's like there's all these feelings, and then there's your mind screaming at you like, no, don't, right? But the more that you can develop clarity around what love is, what healthy relationships are, also I think combating that myth that the things that I am feeling actually have no bearing on whether or not this is a genuinely positive and healthy relationship. Just like beginning to develop that knowledge base almost can be really, really empowering, because it helps you see things differently. It helps you protect yourself. It helps you set boundaries with yourself, which can also be oftentimes a big part of this. And so I just wanted to talk through this a little bit before we jump into questions, so that some of my answers, you'll have like a mental map for some of these. So, okay, let's now jump into your questions. But if you would like to ask a question anonymously without your social media identity being attached to it, come to this page on my website, growingself.com/dear-Lisa. I'll get it in real time, and then I can add it to my list of questions so that you can be included in today's conversation. But otherwise, ask your questions in the comments, and let's just roll right in to some of the things that I have for you today. So here we go. Okay, so I had a number of questions come in advance, which I thought was fantastic. And I just want to answer a couple of these before we move on. So one question was super interesting, and I was so glad that this question came up, because I think it speaks exactly to part of the experience that keep people stuck in toxic relationships for so much longer than they need to be, honestly. And so this is a listener who provided a lot of contextual information, but the punchline is that she's going through a divorce and she is well on her way. Homes have been sold, people have moved, like things have been separated, all is working out, 3 kids, everybody's getting back into like a new rhythm, and intellectually realizing that she stayed in a toxic marriage for way too long. And thank you very much for your kind comments to me. I'm glad to have been part of your journey of growth that allowed you to extract yourself from what sounds like a really bad situation. So thank you for making use of the resources that I put out. But so you're starting to move on and also have a lot of insight and clarity into just how toxic this relationship was for you, how destructive it was for you, and insight into that like attachment dance So it sounds like you're working through a lot of those pieces. But you also share that a lot of regrettable things happened as a result of this. So, there were affairs, broken promises, betrayals, etc. But the question is that you write, recently my ex took our youngest child to the beach for a week. And when they returned, I learned that it was with his new, girlfriend and her son. And that it was another betrayal, essentially, because my ex had promised that he wouldn't introduce the kids to her until we were officially divorced, until I had a chance to meet her. On top of that, there were secrets that were kept. And so the writer is saying, toxicity continues to happen, continued acts of betrayal, broken promises. But why does this still hit me so hard emotionally? I know that this person is a monster, basically, is what she's saying. And the question is, why am I still surprised? Why am I having these feelings come back up? And these feelings of like jealousy almost. Do I think that I still love him? Do I not have enough self-love to not allow him to take my power, right? And make me feel all of these things? When I think about all the lies that I made up in the past to protect the story of my relationship. So there's a little bit of self-betrayal too. But she says, I'm so angry and lost and heartbroken, and I just want to be in the present now. And, the question is like, is this normal? We're 8 months out of this. Like, why am I having this huge resurgence of an emotional storm? And so what I think that this writer, and thank you so much for your question, but I think that this is actually a really beautiful example of this disconnect between what you know to be true. This person lies, this person cheats, this person is deceptive, is unreliable, they do not keep commitments to me. Like, these things, but there's this other emotional piece of you that's still like, oh, and it brings up all these feelings. And so one of the things that is really, really important to know, and this is why this is the very first component of my heartbreak recovery program, is that the healing process happens in stages, and you cannot skip the work of any stage, because if you do, it will create problems for you in the future. And this is unfortunate because most people don't even know that there are stages, much less that they have to go through them. But the first stage is really being able to understand and work with in an empowered way these like very deep mammalian brain reactions that come up for us when attachment bonds are threatened or broken. And so in my program, I call this the withdrawal stage, because you are having these big, big, big feelings that do not really make sense. And it could be craving contact with somebody that is the devil. It could be obsessing about your ex in a way that is so not good for you. It could also be like desires for reunion that are objectively confusing, because this other part of the logical part of your brain is like, but he cheated on you, but he stole all of your savings, but he, like, whatever it is. But there's this other part, but I have these feelings for him. And so here's the thing that most people don't know, is that there's a really ferocious, biologically based bonding reflex that has nothing to do with love. It has to do with survival drives. So anytime we humans experience the loss of a relationship, particularly if it is somebody that we still have a bit of an attachment bond with, starting to be in a relationship with another person, it triggers all of this really enormous, powerful survival drive stuff around reconnection that feels like jealousy, intrusive thoughts, hurt, lowering your self-esteem and idealizing the good qualities of someone else in order to motivate you to reconnect. And you have to understand that the emotional part of your brain, the limbic system, where all these attachment bonds are happening, is non-conscious. It lives in darkness. It does not think, it only feels. And so it will have these reactions in absence of whether or not they make sense. But then your logical mind will try to interpret them. And so I hear that in these questions, like, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel this way? Do I love this person? Are we supposed to be together? Like, what is happening? And it's because your mammalian brain is having this bonding reflex, and it is a reflex. And now your logical brain is trying to figure out what is going on. And so I will tell you that it might not mean anything. Particularly if you have been doing the work of the breakup recovery process. Otherwise, like, clearly there's probably some work to do to understand what these feelings mean and where they come from, and kind of normalize that and have some strategies for managing those. So, because this is like step one work. And I mean, this would be, I think, a question for you. Have you done the work of all of the stages of recovery? So have you processed all the feelings? Have you gone into like emotional healing? Have you spent time like, okay, what did I learn from this experience? Like that learning and growth phase. Because if you have, you are allowed to practice like not paying any attention to this at all. Like skills around, not all my thoughts and feelings are helpful or worth me trying to like even give airspace or headspace. But if you haven't actually done the work of going through all of these stages, and there is unfinished emotional business, some of the stuff coming up could be a signal that even though you're 8 months out, houses are sold, kids are settling into new routines, there is actually still some work to do. So the answer is two of these. So the question goes back to you. If you have done all of the work and you are clear on like, I've done everything, processed all the feelings, I'm in a good place, but then there's like this zombie emotion coming back up. What's going on? You know, that's just stage one reflex, bonding reflex. However, if you haven't done that work yet, that's something that you might want to dig into a little bit more deeply, because it's not good for you to practice like letting it go. I'm going to, start changing my thoughts, changing my feelings, because you need to do this work. It will come back down the line for you until you do the work. Let me just put it that way. So I hope that explanation provides you with some clarity about your situation and your feelings, and I hope it gives you some direction. Okay, good question. So I want to hear your questions. Put them in the comments. Drop them to me in that growingself.com/dear-Lisa if you would like to ask me anonymously. But let's roll into another one. Here is a difficult situation, and I love it when you guys send me a lot of like detail and context, because I have all the info, but I also want to be respectful of your privacy, because these were questions that came in through my private forum. So I will summarize that this writer was separated from his wife after decades of marriage, and separated for about a year. And also he talks about supporting his wife through not just her cancer and also the development of her growth and goals, but that he was subjected to a lot of very abusive behaviors, abusive and unloving and toxic behaviors for all of those years, and still worked really hard to make the relationship work. And so here's the question. I should have seen this coming, but I was shocked when my wife announced that she wanted a divorce. We had been separated, but I felt like we were still working on it. And since she said this, I've been trying to find some answers as to why this happened. So this writer's making sense, trying to make sense of his experience, reflecting on the possibility that his wife may have a very serious psychiatric condition called borderline personality disorder that led him to have some of the experiences with her that he did over the years, that she has every symptom. My therapist tells me this was a very toxic relationship, and yet I am devastated by this. Can you tell me why this has been so difficult for me to accept? He also goes on to say that he's recently retired, that the sense of loss is overwhelming. What can I do to recover my self-worth and start feeling good about myself again? I struggle with loneliness, change in identity. There's a lot going on here. So there is a lot going on here. Oh my gosh. And I just want to say, first of all, how sorry I am that all of this happened to you, because you have been through the ringer. I mean, it sounds like this was a very toxic relationship for you for a long time, and that you worked really hard to make this work and show her true love, seeing her through cancer, supporting her goals, like lifting her up at your own expense. And that it feels like she betrayed you. So there's so much to unpack here, because you're dealing with so many different things. You spent, it sounds like, the bulk of your adult life in this relationship. So, I mean, that's a big piece of it. It's like, what happened, right? But also, who am I? There's a lot of grief work to do here. The loss of the dream and your hopes about the future, but also fears for the future. Like, if you were planning for a retirement based on this idea of a double income retirement situation, then that is now very different. That is really concerning. But so much unfinished emotional business I would expect here. All the dark emotions, rage, resentment, shame, but also, and I don't know where you are in this work, and so I don't want to push you into things that are further on than feels appropriate. But I would imagine that a big chunk of this healing work is going to involve your betrayal of yourself, right? Because this hasn't been good for you for a long time, yet you had this bond that probably needed to be managed a long time ago. And so, the work here is going to take time. And I need to say something. People say all the time, oh, going through a breakup or divorce, it just takes time. That is a lie. You could take 10 years and still be in exactly the same place. You have to do the work and move through the stages of recovery in a productive way. That can sometimes be hard to do through standard issue talk therapy, though. I just wanted to throw that out there to you. But what I am hearing in your story is that you are probably at the very beginning of this process. Again, because time doesn't matter. Like, yes, it's been 14 months since the separation, but clearly you were expecting a reunion. So, you haven't even done the relationship clarity pieces of this yet. So I would strongly encourage you to just learn about the process of healing ahead and settle in. Get ready to do a lot of work, because right now you have unrealistic expectations of yourself. You're saying, why do I feel this badly? Meaning, I shouldn't feel this badly. And my response is that, yeah, you actually should, because you have this work to do. So your one question, why has this been so difficult for me to accept, is because you have not yet done the work. of acceptance in an organized and productive way. And once you do that, you will then be able to move into the next stages of healing and begin moving down this. But again, I mean, coming out of a multi-decade marriage, the growth here will easily be measured in a couple of years. And so I would like you to just manage your expectations about the timeline and what's going to be involved for you in this. I do have a free resource that I would like to put in front of you. If you go to my website, go to growingself.com, and in the main nav, there's like a free resources section. You can take a assessment that I put together, a quiz. It is, let's see, I think it's how over your ex are you? Or maybe it's like what stage of breakup recovery are you in? It's one of those two things, but you'll be able to see it. And you can go through these questions. It'll answer you a lot of questions and score yourself, rate yourself, and then it'll return a report to you where you can get visibility into what stage of healing you're in. But I would be very surprised if you weren't in either stage 1 or perhaps stage 2. But again, I hope just like having a roadmap of where am I now, where do I need to go, will help you start moving forward. Because the other piece, the question was, how do I recover my self-worth? How do I feel good about myself again? What do I do with this loneliness that I'm feeling? Those things are dealt with in like stages 6, 7, 8. Like you have to do a lot of other things. There's a lot of work to be done for you to earn those things. Self-worth, feeling good about yourself and your life, managing feelings of loneliness, maybe doing something to change that. You can't feel good about yourself right now until these other things happen. So, and I just say this not to be discouraging, but I hope to provide you with validation, but also clarity around like what normal looks like, because I think that sometimes people can be very, very hard on themselves. Like, why do I feel so bad right now? What is wrong with me? I want to feel good about myself again. What do I need to do to make that happen? Genuinely not understanding the process. And so then not only are they stuck in this bad place, they lack compassion, I think, for themselves, because they don't understand that of course you feel this way, and like here's what you really need to do to move forward. So I hope that also just makes you feel more patient with your own process and more compassionate towards your own experience. Okay. So many good questions. This is fantastic. Again, if you have questions, you can submit them to me in the comments or right here, growingself.com, dear-Lisa. But now let's go to some questions that have come in from comments, because these are always so fun. So I'm going to take this off. Oops, wait a minute. And, oh dear. This is the thing with live streams, right? Okay, so let's do, here's a good one. Okay. All right, my friends, let's tackle this question together. So Caleb, thank you very much for hanging out today and for your question. The question is, how can I process my wife cheating and then filing for divorce, now threatening to take my daughter across the country with her? Wow. Well, so the question is how to process this. So, I mean, Caleb, what you are describing is abuse upon abuse upon abuse, which is not just a toxic relationship, but a highly traumatizing one. I mean, to be cheated on, like infidelity, that is an enormous betrayal trauma. But then after that, being abandoned is another huge trauma. And I can only imagine how much fear you must be in right now, thinking that your ex could take your daughter across the country with her. I mean, that is I mean, not even like a trauma for something that happened. It is a traumatic event that is occurring in your life right now that is still kind of up in the air. And so it may, okay, so this may surprise you to hear, but there is a big difference between currently going through something that is very, very difficult, traumatizing, and like you're in it. And when you are unsafe, when you are in this currently, it is an unfair and unreasonable expectation of yourself, and also untrue, that you should be able to process this or heal from it in a meaningful way, because the work of the phase that you are in right now is probably survival, action planning, like what do you need to do to protect yourself and your daughter, and actually using a different part of your mind, which is strategic thinking. Like, and I am not an attorney and would not presume to give you advice in this area, although I do have a couple of episodes of my podcast from very good divorce lawyers. Well, and the whole topic may not be necessarily relevant. The episode is how to stop a divorce. But the second half of this, I'm talking to a very experienced family law attorney around, in the event that you can't stop a divorce, here's what to do. I have another podcast episode around amicable divorce, again with a very experienced family law attorney. And I would actually recommend that you listen to those and see if you can find somebody who can guide you with legal advice. So parenting plans, I mean, legal protections that would prevent your wife from being able to take your daughter out of the state, because those things exist. But the point being is that you need to turn on this like survivor mind right now and cope with the feelings that are going to come up. So you can absolutely expect to feel anxious, to feel afraid, to feel sad, to like have all this unfinished emotional business right now. And when the dust settles a little bit, would be the time for you to begin engaging in the work. Because if it's like, up to 11, you can't really do the emotional pieces of this work. I do think that stage 1 work could actually still be helpful for you if you're experiencing symptoms of withdrawal that are confusing to you, like so craving contact with your ex, obsessing about her all the time. Not the situation necessarily, because a patently dangerous situation, you should be obsessing about it, because that's your brain trying to like figure out a path forward. But craving contact with her, if there's some of that, not necessarily even for the purpose of changing those feelings, but so you have clarity around, even though I have these thoughts and feelings, this is what I need to do. So there's a difference between how we feel and what we think, and how we choose to behave, to make sure that you are behaving in a way that is in alignment with your values and also your true love for yourself and your daughter, which is, I don't feel good right now, but I need to do the right thing, and I need to figure out what that right thing is, and I need to hold myself accountable to following through with this, holding the boundaries, calling the people, whatever. And then when you are in a safer space, when your daughter is in a safer space, then you can move on into the deeper aspects of the growth work that I think is where the processing part will eventually come from. So I hope that makes sense to you. And if you have any follow-up questions or comments about this, let me know, and I'm happy to speak to them. And so if you have questions that you haven't asked yet on this topic, and we're talking about how to break free from a toxic relationship, how to identify a toxic relationship, how to recover from a toxic relationship, I hope you ask them, because I really want to be helpful to you in our live stream today. Okay, so I'm going to flip back over to another listener question. And let's go back over to this one. Oh, and I need to check one other place really quick. Hang on, you guys. I just want to make sure that I didn't miss any other questions. So, oh no. Okay. Okay, awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much for these amazing questions, by the way. This is so good. And thank you too for being so authentic about the things that are going on with you. Having more context helps me understand a little bit more about what's going on. Okay, so here's another question. This one is, how do I deal with my friends and family's perceptions after a toxic breakup? So my ex deflected blame and minimized away his toxic behavior, including things like emotional abuse and also cheating, and made me out to be the bad guy, which makes me feel so wronged. But I also feel like defending myself and like engaging in this against what he's doing. Like, I feel like I need to protect myself. And the things that he's saying about me are easily proven wrong. But me going into these spaces to defend myself is very detrimental to my mental health. And so, what do I do? Wow, this is so good. So, there's a lot here, and I am so sorry that you have been through this experience. So, first of all, I just want to applaud you for the insight that you have into yourself, and understanding like what's good for you and what is not good for you. And I also want to just validate and legitimize the way that you're feeling. I mean, you have had terrible things happen to you in this relationship. You were victimized by this person, and they continue to victimize you in a very real way after the relationship is over. And so ultimately, you will decide what to do in the way that's right for you. But it seems to me like there are a couple of different paths. One follow-up question that I would actually have, I would be curious about this if we were working together in breakup recovery coaching. I would want to know, what are the consequences of this horrible ex saying bad things about you to other people? Are these people that you care about? Are these people that you need to stay connected to? Are these people who, I don't know, have some power over your career path? Or like, what are the long-term downstream consequences of these people that your ex is talking to thinking things about you that may be less than flattering? And really, like, spend some time there. And this may be difficult to think about, and you will need to get into the pool a little bit emotionally in order to do this kind of strategic thinking. But like, carrying this into the future, if I do nothing and Jerkoid, whatever his name was, keeps going on this hating me campaign until he runs out of steam in 3 months, when I look at what the outcome of that would be for me and for my life, what is that exactly? Because if it is, well, I don't want people to think badly about me, right? That's one thing. Or if it's, people who are distant acquaintances who you may or may not ever see again. But if it is, this could actually impact my career, my livelihood, my ability to have a better life, my ability to rebuild my life and have positive relationships with these people, or saying things to people that I really care about and want to stay connected to, it may be wise to figure out what action you could take to protect yourself from someone who is actively abusing you, but figure out a way to do it that is going to be more emotionally low impact for you than maybe what you have been doing. So So door number one, if you realize like, actually in the big scheme of my life, it doesn't matter that much. I still hate it, but it doesn't matter that much. You could decide to do nothing. Door number two is, okay, I need to be my own PR rep. I'm going to do a public relations campaign for myself where I get to tell people what to believe about me so that they don't have a narrative about me created that is untrue by this person who is victimizing me, but doing this in a low impact way. So one example of this could be to put together an email or a text, or depending on the context, and have it be as appropriate as possible, but to say it has come to my attention that the person that I was in an abusive relationship with for many years has continued to victimize me since the relationship has been over, including by spreading lies about me, essentially in efforts to punish me after the relationship ended. I just want to be authentic with you and let you know that this happened and is continuing to happen to me. I trust that you and I have a strong relationship. We have a lot of positive history together. I am happy to share with you more details, or if you have questions for me about who I am or my intentions, I hope that you come to me with those. But I just wanted you to know that I was in an abusive relationship that I'm still struggling to get out of. And so thank you for having grace with me. And I'm sorry if this has been, if you've gotten splashed with any of this drama, because that's not fair to you. But labeling it in this way and your position in this will help people develop an alternative understanding of what's going on, and is more likely to mobilize their support of you, as well as discredit things that they might be likely to hear. Now, of course, if you're in any kind of legal situation, I am not an attorney, and depending on the legal situation, you might want to check out the best strategic plan for how to handle that if there's litigation involved. I'll just say that. However, either way, so you decide to do a PR campaign for yourself, you decide to let it go. The other piece that I would encourage you to learn more about and to cultivate is something called radical acceptance. And radical acceptance is can be hard to attain, but it's incredibly liberating. And radical acceptance is that bad things, like objectively negative things, are happening in reality, and I am choosing to accept the fact that this is occurring, as opposed to spend a lot of my emotional energy being mad about it, wishing it were different, feeling, victimized at the injustice, like, because it's not acknowledging that the things happened, but it is detaching yourself from the emotional response. That is what would really be the most difficult part for you. So if you want to learn more about radical acceptance, you can check out that podcast. That's a past episode of the Love, Happiness, and Success podcast as well, which you can also find on my website. If you go to growingself.com, you'll see in the main nav blog and podcast. And so there you will have access to all of these podcasts that I've recorded related to these topics. And actually, let me give you another free resource. If you type the word clarity into the chat box right now, you will get an automatic link to a content collection that I put together for you that's all about relationship clarity. And so in that, you will find those podcasts that I mentioned about how to stop a divorce, or how to have an amicable divorce, other articles about how to identify toxic relationships, how to the difference between emotionally healthy versus emotionally unhealthy relationships. But also you'll find links into topics like radical acceptance and how do I move forward emotionally in face of really awful things having happened to me, because that's super real. So anyway, thank you so much for these amazing questions. I'm so grateful for them. And so I hope that you come back next week. Next week, I think we're talking about something that is probably related. I'm pretty sure it's how to repair your self-esteem after a breakup. And that was coming up a lot today. So I hope that if that feels true for you, you come to next week's live stream on Thursday. If you have questions that you would like to send to me in advance, please do so. That Dear Lisa link is the way to go. You can take advantage of other free resources on my website. If you go to the free resources section of growingself.com, you can take the How Over Your Ex Are You breakup recovery quiz that will give you visibility into the stages of healing after heartbreak. So you're like, okay, here's where I am and here are my next steps. Get a little roadmap. But also, if you just type in clarity, you'll get this entire relationship clarity content collection, including articles, free advice, a curated podcast playlist that I think might be really helpful for you. And if you are watching this as kind of an observer, and especially if you're in a place where you're not fully sure if this is a toxic relationship or not, you suspect it might be, I would really encourage you to listen to some of the podcasts in that collection, because lots of information about how to discern what's happening here, like signs of a toxic relationship, that I hope just builds some awareness in you around what this looks like, and also, strategies that other people have used to break free of these for once and for all. And then once you are free, and several of you who got in touch with questions today are not yet free. I mean, you are in situations where you are actively being victimized by this person, so you're still in the process of breaking free. But then once that happens and you are in a safe place, then the work of healing and recovery can really happen. So I'm excited for that for you. And certainly, so check out those free resources. And if you'd like to learn anything about our breakup recovery coaching, divorce recovery coaching, or the breakup recovery program, heartbreak recovery program I was talking about, that's also available on my website. You can just go into the heartbreak recovery section and learn more. Okay, thank you so much for spending this time with me today. It is always such a pleasure for me to do these with you. And I'll be back in touch next week, and we'll be talking about how to heal your self-esteem after a breakup. All right, take care.